My mother-in-law is insisting on a paternity test because our kids turned out to be lighter skinned than expected. She's accusing me of being a cheater, but I have no desire to take the test just to prove myself to her. To make matters worse, my husband is starting to doubt the situation. It's surreal for me to share this story since I'm usually the one reading about family drama on here. I've always been the reader, not the contributor. However, now the tables have turned, and I find myself seeking advice. So my mother-in-law pushed me into taking a paternity test for my baby, and I'm contemplating revenge. Before delving into the revenge plot, let me provide some context. I'm a nurse, a wife, and a new mom to 1-year-old twins. My husband Dave and I met 3 years ago while studying at the same university. Despite initially being just friends due to other relationships, we eventually became a couple. Our relationship faced challenges, particularly with our parents. My dad had reservations initially, but he warmed up to Dave. On the other hand, my husband's mother, now my mother-in-law, never liked me. Her disapproval stemmed from her colorist views, as she wasn't thrilled that her son chose a dark-skinned woman like me. The relationship with his parents, especially his mother, posed difficulties, but we persevered. Fast forward to the birth of our twins, and things took an unexpected turn. Despite both of us being dark-skinned, the twins emerged with light brown skin, hazel eyes, and a different hair texture. This raised eyebrows and led to doubts about their parentage. Even though I had a normal and comfortable pregnancy, the unusual appearance of our twins sparked suspicion. I assured people that their features would likely settle into a more familiar look over time, given some family mixing on my side. However, as months passed, their hazel eyes persisted, and their light skin showed no signs of darkening. Now I'm grappling with the demand for a paternity test and contemplating how to deal with my mother-in-law's accusations. So, the snarky comments escalated after the first time I heard a blatant accusation. It happened during the twins' 6-month get-together, a family gathering we organized. One of the aunts remarked on how the babies hadn't darkened and now looked more like a milk chocolate mix than a dark chocolate mix, making a clear accusation of infidelity. What bothered me more was my husband's silence, a tacit agreement with the accusations. The accusations continued throughout the function, with family members making similar comments. By the end of the night, I was exhausted and frustrated. My husband chose to leave me to manage the twins as he went off to play games with his cousins. When the babies wouldn't stop crying and I asked for help, my mother-in-law suggested I call my actual baby daddies and stop embarrassing her son. That was the breaking point. A heated argument ensued, and I ended up staying at a friend's that night. The arguments persisted, and whenever I was around the family, my mother-in-law made sure her suspicions were heard loud and clear, regardless of the audience. This went on for a month before she began pressuring me to get a paternity test, which I adamantly refused. I thought she'd eventually drop the issue, but it only intensified. Frustrated, I confronted my husband, hoping he would deal with his mother. To my dismay, he sided with her, insisting I take the paternity test. When I refused, he threatened divorce and kicked me out. It was a devastating blow, equivalent to him accusing me of infidelity. Reluctantly, I agreed to the paternity test. On the day of the results, my mother-in-law invited the entire family over, seemingly eager to witness my embarrassment. However, when my husband saw the results, the embarrassment shifted to her. The undeniable proof confirmed that the twins were indeed ours, exposing her as a paranoid mother who took out her issues with me on the grandchildren. While I felt a hint of smug satisfaction, the fact that my husband needed a piece of paper to prove my fidelity lingered in my mind, making it challenging to genuinely appreciate the victory. So, I had to leave. It was necessary to stay with a friend for a few weeks, explaining to my husband that I needed space. He clearly wasn't thrilled about it, realizing the gravity of his actions. However, I made it clear that it was either that or divorce. I needed time until I could look at his face without a hint of resentment for not believing me enough. Once I felt ready to return home, things resumed to our routine, but I was never fully and truly present as I once was. The almost non-existent libido served as undeniable proof of the lingering unease. The twins had turned 1, marking about 5 months since the incident. Recently, something happened, and I'm uncertain if I'm making the right decision. My husband had a work-related accident last month, losing a significant amount of blood. It was a scare I hadn't prepared for, and despite the betrayal, the thought of losing him terrified me. Upon learning that he was otherwise okay and only needed a blood transfusion, I thought everything would be fine. However, my shock deepened when I discovered that neither of his parents had his blood type. His mother, Mathis, was type A, and father-in-law, Kevin, with type AB, while my husband, Dave, was type O. For those unfamiliar with blood types, an A or AB parent should not result in an O-type child. The child should have an A or B blood type. This raised suspicions, especially when Chris, a family friend, offered to donate and turned out to have O blood. Chris, despite being a brown-skinned black man, came from interracial parents, making it plausible for him to be my husband's biological father. This could explain the biracial genes that might have mixed with my own diverse gene pool, contributing to our kids' unique attributes. Despite the initial desire to resist snooping, the need to address the unnecessary rift in my marriage prompted me to investigate. I confirmed my suspicions, and 6 days ago, I decided to take the next step. As I was taking care of lunch for my recovering husband, Mavis, my mother-in-law, walked in, sparking an argument. She criticized me for not having prepared the lunch earlier, conveniently overlooking the fact that she delayed things while shopping for the necessary items. This encounter fueled my determination to uncover the truth. So after that humiliating encounter, I reached a breaking point. Now I find myself sitting in my car, clutching an envelope that holds the potential to shatter my mother-in-law Mavis's life and turn my husband's reality upside down. I'm not entirely sure why I'm sharing this, considering I've already made up my mind to seek revenge. Perhaps I just need someone, even a random stranger online, to validate that what I'm about to do is justified. However, by the time I come back here, a week from now, I'll probably have already executed my revenge. See you all then. Update number 1. I went through with it, and it felt strangely satisfying. I read your messages, and I noticed some agreed, while others did not with my plan. Regardless of the opinions, it happened. I did have second thoughts when I arrived home. Instead of immediately exposing her, I held onto the envelope and went about my life as usual. Thankfully, she wasn't at the house when I got there, sparing me from a potential argument. I was stuck in traffic on the way home, so I worried about not reaching home early enough to make dinner for Dave and give him his medicine. Luckily, I was only a few minutes behind, and I managed to sort everything out quickly. Some of you asked about the DNA test. I confess, I stole a few strands of Chris and Kevin's hair, which wasn't difficult. I'd also got my husband's hair. It wasn't exactly the legal way to go about it, but I did it. I checked the results again that night while my husband was in the bathtub, and my suspicions were once again confirmed. He was indeed Chris's child. I hid the results as soon as he came home from his shower, but as I contemplated whether to expose the truth, I found myself staring at him. The more I looked, the more I distanced myself from the idea of revenge. I almost decided to drop it until we were in bed, and he made a move that I refused. Still struggling with low libido and mentally processing the information I had uncovered, I thought he would understand. Instead, he exploded, saying hurtful things because I refused intimacy. The worst part was when he brought up his mother as he left, suggesting she might be right about me cheating and using that as a reason for denying intimacy. This revelation indicated that he had been discussing our intimate life with his mother, adding another layer to the betrayal, which I found disturbing, but he was still taking her word and accusing me of cheating. This was the catalyst that made me change my mind and partly led me to expose her secret. Another factor that solidified my decision was when he stayed over at her place for several days. When he returned home, I found one of the dress shirts he unpacked from his luggage. and had makeup stains clearly of a different shade than any of the women in our family. I chose not to confront him at that moment because it wouldn't make sense. Instead, I quietly plotted and waited for the perfect opportunity, which presented itself today. A cousin of Mavis had a baby shower and a gender reveal party, providing the ideal setting as the entire family was present. I patiently waited until right after the gender reveal and sent a photo of the 2 DNA tests to my father-in-law Kevin's phone. It didn't take him long to explode, storming through the back doors likely from the kitchen, and then confronting Mavis by throwing the phone in her face, demanding an explanation. The entire party turned their attention to the commotion, with some men moving towards Kevin, concerned that he might resort to violence. Although I was sure he wouldn't hit her, I stepped back and watched everything unfold. Mavis's initial confusion quickly faded as she saw the contents of the phone. Normally adept at lying and acting, her face betrayed the truth. Kevin didn't need words to know that whatever the picture showed was not a lie. He erupted into shouts and curses. It didn't take long for the entire party to learn that she was an absolute cheater. Chris tried to calm the situation, but Kevin, fueled by anger, directed his violence towards him first. The scene was chaotic, and I maintained an appropriately shocked expression to avoid suspicion, even though I had the urge to burst into laughter. My husband also jumped into the fray, resulting in him getting hit in the face and reopening his injury. While I should have felt sorry, given what he had done and said, I couldn't help but feel that he deserved it. After dedicating years to him, he chose to listen to his mother and accused me of the worst possible thing. The discovery of the makeup stain, clearly not matching any family members, made it evident that he was also cheating. I wouldn't be surprised if he took advice from Mama Dearest and did just that. She had always made it clear that he should have chosen a white woman, claiming his life would have been easier. Anyway, nobody wanted to involve the police because all those involved were black, specifically black men. The family had to physically intervene to separate the group. However, with Chris's ego bruised from getting beaten up and a bit intoxicated, he resorted to verbal violence and blurted out the entire twisted history of how it all went down. Here's the breakdown. Kevin grew up wealthy, while Chris grew up financially strained. They met in high school, and despite Chris' initial jealousy, he recognized that Kevin held the key to numerous opportunities. They became close, sharing similar tastes in women. Enter Mavis, who, of course, went for the one with more financial stability, Kevin. They dated, but all the while, Mavis secretly desired Chris, as she sought the mixed-race aspect. Kevin was fully dark-skinned, while Chris had a smoother brown complexion, not entirely light-skinned but enough to indicate a mix of races. They carried on a clandestine affair while Mavis got pregnant. They schemed that if the baby looked enough like Kevin, they could claim him as the father and enjoy the benefits of Kevin's opportunities. If not, they would have to say goodbye to those advantages and try to make it work. Luck seemed to be on their side, as the baby looked just like Kevin, securing their access to opportunities. Kevin, unknowingly, married Mavis and helped his best friend Chris build his own business, achieving their respective desires. While I felt sympathy for Kevin during this revelation, it wasn't expressed elegantly, but I've put it into words for you. Kevin nearly lost control after learning the truth, but his family intervened, carrying him away to prevent further damage. Mavis, in the meantime, was visibly distraught, knowing that Chris was already married with a family of his own. After these revelations, we headed back home. I had to drive and put the babies in their car seats, since my husband was a mess throughout the journey. I didn't bother trying to talk to him when we got home. Eventually, as the evening wore on, he dressed and left home without uttering a word to me. Here I am now in bed, typing this and watching to see how everything unfolds. If there are any significant changes, I'll update you all. Updates. So Kevin is filing for divorce and initially considered pursuing a lawsuit for paternity fraud against Mavis. However, he decided against it and proposed a different deal. In this new arrangement, Mavis would sign away any rights to half of Kevin's assets, and In return, Kevin would forgo pursuing a legal case against her. Mathis, however, has been making it difficult for Mavis to agree to this deal. If she signs, she would be giving up a substantial amount, including a luxurious lifestyle and a sizable house. With only a few thousand in her savings, signing away her rights would leave her unable to maintain her current lifestyle. The situation is complicated by the fact that she can't rely on Chris, who is dealing with issues in his own marriage as their secrets unravel. It was discovered that Chris and Mavis were still involved even after she got married, coinciding with the time Chris met his current wife. As for my husband's reaction to all this, he's been heavily drinking and ignoring me when I try to talk to him. I wonder if he suspects I played a role in this, but at the same time, I don't care much. He has come home with similar makeup stains from the last time, and I'm just observing how things unfold. If his work is significantly affected, I might step in, as I don't want my children to grow up without their dad, or with an alcoholic father. I'll update you all whenever the next event unfolds. Some of you seem quite invested, making the situation more amusing. See you until next time. Update number 3, final update. A lot has happened since the previous update. In the battle between Kevin and Mavis over her signing away her rights to half his assets or facing a paternity fraud lawsuit, Kevin emerged victorious. It was discovered that Mavis couldn't afford strong enough lawyers for the case, and the one she consulted flat out told her she had no chance of winning. Eventually, she signed away everything. The eviction that followed was swift and ruthless. Kevin gave her minimal time, and as soon as it was up, he had people ensuring she left. My husband, easily convinced to let her live with us, worsened our already failing marriage. His mother's behavior escalated from bad to tyrannical, and I felt like a prisoner in my own home. Over the last few weeks, I've stayed at friends, hotels, and motels on many nights with the twins. When things got worse, Dave was no help. He seems only to care about drinking, leaving early for work, and returning late, likely cheating. He's also started neglecting not only me but also the kids. I attempted to address the issue with him multiple times, even leading to arguments. In the midst of one argument, he said hurtful things, including calling me an annoying chick and expressing regret for not listening to his mother's advice to find a white woman. After that, I concluded that divorce was the best option, and I started preparing for it. However, I found myself weighing various options, considering the need to find temporary accommodation, cover babysitting expenses, and handle legal costs. A few weeks later, I had another argument with Dave, and during my absence, my mother-in-law discovered the hidden DNA test results. When I returned home, a heated argument ensued, revealing that Dave had been part of the plan to maintain the facade for financial gain. Their scheme involved inheriting Kevin's construction company, a $1 million business. My attempt to defend myself led to physical violence, and the police were swiftly involved. Dave spent the night in jail, and Mathis had to arrange his bail. Kevin, learning about the situation, reached out to help me with the case against Dave. He not only assisted me, but also supported me in obtaining child support and securing the house where Mavis had been living. Mavis, attempting to threaten me, faced charges of assault. With evidence of Dave's violent behavior and increased alcohol consumption, I gained control of the custodial arrangements for the children. In the aftermath, I decided to sell the house and purchase an apartment in a secure location. This move was to safeguard against any potential threats from Dave or Mavis. Despite their chaotic lives, I wanted to ensure the well-being of my children. I appreciate those who followed this roller coaster journey, and I invite you to share your thoughts or similar experiences in the comments. If you're new to the channel, I'm Mr. Reddito, and I share stories daily. Feel free to subscribe and like the video. See you in the next one. I found myself unemployed, prompting me to turn to my stepmother for assistance. To my dismay, she responded with laughter, dismissing me as useless. However, she seemed to have overlooked a crucial detail. I held the reins in this dynamic. Despite my initial reluctance to share this story, the twists of life led me to this throwaway account where I could vent my frustrations, anger, and disappointment. Allow me to set the stage for a better understanding of my situation. I had a thriving career at a major magazine company, affording me a comfortable lifestyle that I had always aspired to. My father, a dedicated worker, instilled the value of hard work in me. Unfortunately, unforeseen circumstances led to his job loss, leaving us grappling with financial uncertainty. Enter my stepmother, with whom I maintained an on and off relationship. One might assume that, given my father's unemployment, she would step up. However, that assumption proved incorrect. Accustomed to a life of homemaking, she had been granted this luxury by my father, who believed his income sufficed. The blame lay with him for fostering this mindset. In an effort to support them, I took on the financial burden, covering their rent, groceries, and other essentials. I even secured a personal assistant position for my stepmother at my workplace, hoping to ease the strain. As she settled into her new role, life took an unexpected turn, prompting me to share my story here. Fast forward to a day at the office, engrossed in writing an article, when my stepmother, wearing an uncharacteristic smile, entered. Despite her infrequent displays of joy, she proposed a lunch outing, citing our lack of shared meals since her employment. While perplexed, I agreed, only to have my colleague Jane express concern about the unusual invitation. As we sat down at a nearby restaurant, engaging in small talk, my stepmother's motive came to light. She thanked me genuinely for securing her job, a gesture I had never anticipated from her. The unexpected turn continued as she expressed a desire to improve our relationship, acknowledging her past behavior and lack of maternal instinct. She attributed this to a traumatic childhood, a revelation that softened my perception of her. We concluded lunch with a mutual commitment to working on our relationship, a revelation that warmed my heart. Despite the rocky history, the prospect of a closer bond with my stepmother became a source of happiness. Returning to the office, I chose not to disclose this development to Jane, knowing her skepticism could overshadow the potential for positive change. Everyone, including my stepmother, deserved a fair chance at redemption and connection. Update number 1. My life currently resembles a roller coaster, with everything seemingly falling apart. I question whether I can even fix the chaos unfolding. It's been a few weeks since the lunch date with my stepmother, and things have been progressing positively between us. We agreed to take things slow and not rush into anything. However, as I sit in my office engrossed in proofreading one of my articles, an unexpected storm hits. My usually cheerful supervisor walks in looking agitated, a stark departure from his typical jolly demeanor. Sensing something is amiss, I inquire about his mood. He responds with a raised eyebrow and a heavy sigh. As he sits across from me, the tension in the room intensifies. He gazes at me, disappointment etched on his face, and proceeds to express his profound disappointment. Confused and trying to grasp the situation, I'm handed a stack of documents. Scanning through them, I discover there was a crucial meeting last weekend, mandatory for all journalists at the company. Strangely, I never received any communication about this meeting. My supervisor chastises me for missing such a vital event, deeming it unprofessional and indicative of my complacency. Despite my protestations and assurance that I was unaware of the meeting, he accuses me of not taking my job seriously. The bombshell drops when he declares that I'm no longer employed, citing my recent promotion as a mistake. Shocked and fighting back tears, I defend myself, emphasizing my dedication over the past 5 years. It's a stark contrast to the impeccable record I've maintained. Nevertheless, he remains resolute, demanding my departure within the next 10 minutes, threatening to involve security if I resist. Update number 2. As I hastily pack my belongings, emotions run high. The unfairness of losing my job without a chance to explain or defend myself weighs heavily. In my car, the tears finally flow as I grapple with the reality of unemployment. The impact on my ability to support my father and the dashed dreams of a luxury car from my savings further compound the despair. Update number 3. Reflecting on this harsh lesson, I realize I placed unwarranted trust in people. The disappointment of betrayal stings, especially as my stepmother remains conspicuously absent during this challenging time. A week post-termination, only Jane has reached out to check on me, highlighting the true colors of those I once considered close. The realization that my stepmother hasn't bothered to inquire about my well-being, despite knowing about my job loss, adds another layer of disappointment. I muster the courage to visit her and my father, only to be met with an indifferent attitude, leaving me questioning the sincerity of her earlier expressions of wanting to work on our relationship. Since my termination, my stepmother greets me with a slight smile and shakes her head. Expressing my need for her support and recalling our agreement to work on our relationship, she bursts into laughter. Amidst her laughter, she dismisses me as a joke and claims it's my fault for getting fired. Shocked, I confront her, but she continues, labeling me an entitled, spoiled brat who should have taken my job more seriously. Baffled by this sudden change in demeanor, I resist stooping to her level. I point out the irony of her calling me spoiled while residing in the house I pay rent for. Mentioning the rent matter visibly shakes her, but I decide not to engage further, declaring that I won't bother her again. Days pass, and I focus on job hunting, still reeling from the betrayal. A knock at the door interrupts my search, and it's Jane with disturbing news. Relieved that my relationship with my stepmother is non-existent, she reveals that my stepmother orchestrated my firing. Apparently, she deliberately withheld details about a crucial meeting organized by her boss, leading to my dismissal. Jane's revelation extends further. She caught my stepmother and my former supervisor making out in the office a few days ago. The shock hits me as I grapple with the realization that not only did she get me fired, but she's also cheating on my father with my ex-supervisor. Update number 3. Armed with this information, 2 weeks pass as Jane and I gather evidence to prove my unfair dismissal and expose the affair. In the past week, Jane has been instrumental in helping me schedule a meeting with the CEO, human resources manager, my stepmother's boss, and my former supervisor. As we gather in the boardroom, tension fills the air. Upon my supervisor's inquiry about the presence of others, I assure him that everything will be revealed soon. As my stepmother walks in, my supervisor's expression changes noticeably. I begin to explain the purpose of the meeting, to prove my innocence and expose the unfair circumstances surrounding my dismissal. I present documents to everyone in the room, demonstrating that I was never emailed details about the crucial meeting weeks ago, stressing that Maria, my stepmother, never informed me despite ample opportunities to do so. I catch the attention of the CEO, who nods in agreement. The focus then shifts to my stepmother's boss, who questions Maria about why she didn't email me the meeting details and why she lied about it. Maria stammers and freezes, unable to provide a satisfactory answer. Her boss presses her further, asking why she lied when confronted about the email. My former supervisor attempts to explain but fails to garner belief. The HR manager asserts that I was fired unprofessionally and questions the supervisor's authority to terminate my employment. Seizing the moment, I produce more documents and disclose the probable reason for my supervisor's decision. As my stepmother glances through the documents, she reacts explosively, hurling insults at me. She calls me an entitled pig, accusing me of being a spoiled brat. Her outburst intensifies as she wishes my father could witness what she perceives as my evil nature. In a shocking turn, she attempts to physically harm me, but my attorney intervenes, preventing the assault. Security is summoned, and my stepmother is escorted out of the building, promptly fired. The CEO declares that my stepmother will no longer work for the company. The revelation on the documents exposes her deceitful actions, leading to her immediate termination. The documents, acquired through a breach of privacy, on her public office computer, reveal social media conversations between her and my supervisor, further substantiating their collusion. The CEO expresses disgust at her behavior, emphasizing that she crossed professional and ethical boundaries. Update number 4. A month has passed since the exposure of my stepmother and supervisor's wrongdoings. Both were fired immediately, a consequence they deserved. However, My relationship with my father suffered a severe blow when he defended my stepmother's actions and blamed me for the turmoil. He justified her cheating, claiming neglect on his part.